Well, I won't go through the names again, but we just welcome everyone that's here. Doug Houseladen, welcome, Director of Traffic and Parking. Giovanni Zen, Director of Engineering. Is that close enough? City Engineering, great. And so we'll give it now to the Mayor, who will continue with this part of the program. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It really is great to be here this evening. I want to thank you all for being here as we think about infrastructure improvements for our local transportation system. Simply put, transportation circulation is really the what we rely upon, and the system that we have now was never envisioned for the kind of traffic that we have here today. At best, the congestion around Route 15 to Exit 59 is an inconvenience, but its impact grows progressively worse as we consider the negative economic and environmental impact, and the matter that becomes increasingly urgent when we factor in public safety consequences. So we're really excited that you're here tonight, and what is really great about this is that I served for many years in the General Assembly with Ellen Scalatar. So, and then when I wasn't serving with her, she worked at the General Assembly, so I've known her for 20 years. And I basically said, well, Ellen, gee, are there any things that we can work on? And she says, well, I'm very disappointed because the Department of Transportation told me that to fix Exit 59 would take 30 years. I said, well, we won't be around then. And so she spoke to our Lieutenant Governor, and we're beginning to make progress. So I'm really excited to hear about the progress that is planned for our generation and for now. So with that, I want to introduce you to my friend, First Select Woman Ellen Scalatar.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful for us to be here together tonight to get the updated DOT plan for the Exit 59 area. As Mayor Hart mentioned, one of my first meetings on this topic was with DOT, and they had a terrific plan, very extensive, and it had been through many iterations. It was the revised plan, and I had only one question. It looks great. If it all goes well, how long will it take? And as Mayor Hart said, they said 30 years, and I thought it was a joke. But in fact, that's what they meant. So we were really determined to see if there was something that could be done to alleviate that traffic problem. It's very serious for us, coming both ways, coming Bethany, Woodbridge, and from New Haven. It is an economic development impediment. So I want to thank DOT for going back to the drawing board, and thank Commissioner Rediker. I know he really supported us in this. And it's been wonderful having the inter-community cooperation as well. I also want to mention that we have 3 other members of our Board of Selectmen, Lawrence Groth here, Joe Dye, and Tony Anastasio here tonight, members of our Economic Development Commission, and many of our concerned residents. So without further ado, thank you, DOT.
Thank you. My name is Peter Tallarico, and I'm here with the Department of Transportation. I'm here with Tom Borden. There are a few others from the department mixed in amongst you. We're here tonight to talk about some interim improvements. Our unit, the Project Development Unit, we review locations for potential improvements in areas of known problems, and often these areas are brought to our attention by our municipal leaders. And what we do is we try to establish early coordination with the communities. We develop viable project concepts, and we develop outlines. These project concepts become outlines for the design and eventual construction. Now, I just want to be clear, the concepts that we're going to show you here tonight are not the longer-term interchange reconfiguration concepts that were looked at under the Exit 59 study. We're here to look instead at lower cost, less impacting alternatives that can be implemented sooner. So our goal here tonight is to seek informed comments from you, major stakeholders in the community. We're at the very early stage of this project. We don't have survey yet. There's not a formal design. These are just concepts. And we're looking to get your input before there's a significant commitment of resources to the project. So Tom will walk through the details of the proposal. But first, I just want to reiterate that this is early in the process, conceptual stage. There will be another public informational meeting at about the 30% design stage. Finally, I'd just like to ask that you hold your questions until the end of Tom's presentation. There'll be plenty of time to go over any questions. We'll take as much time as you need, but your questions may be answered eventually in the presentation. So just hold your questions and then we can go over them at the end. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Pete. We're going to present a hopefully brief PowerPoint presentation for this meeting today. So I'll try to coordinate with Pete on the presentation as we go through. But the purpose of tonight's meeting is basically to inform those that proposed improvements are being discussed. We want to hear your input and see comments for tonight. As Pete mentioned, we want to gauge public support. Just to kind of give you a meeting overview, I'm going to briefly describe some existing conditions. I'm sure many of you are aware of them. Identify the purpose and need of our project, the proposed improvements, costs, impacts, and schedules. So we're also going to discuss at the close of that discussion, the short-term, interim improvements, some of the long-term initiatives that the department has ongoing for this area. And then, as Pete mentioned, we're going to open up to public comment. Describe the area. This is an aerial view, a Google view of the project area. Route 63, Route 69. I know it's not as clear. It looked much better when it was not as large. Lucy Street, the Parkway, and southbound, northbound. This is Pondley Avenue. So this is basically the project area, which in the south we will be doing some minor improvements down at the intersection of 63 and 69. I'm sorry, I know you can't see through me, so I'll move more to the side. But I still want you to hear me, so if you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll yell a little louder. But so the southerly limit of the project is at the intersection of 63 and 69. The northerly end of the project will be at Lucy Street. The purpose of our project is basically to provide short-term capacity improvements and also to provide pedestrian improvements both in safety and accessibility, mobility. So, as Peter had mentioned, we're in the project development unit. And what we do, we develop projects. We try to gain consensus through various stakeholder meetings like tonight. And eventually we will initiate that project. And the other milestones in the design process is our design would start once we initiate a project. It's going to go down to our state design unit. They'll be doing the design. They'll be, as Peter had mentioned, once you get to the preliminary design phase, and that phase basically identifies where the impacts are, where the new curb lines will be, what are the impacts of that new curb line, and it'll give the public more to look at as far as really what the design looks like. What we're showing you tonight is a conceptual design. It meets our standards, and these are the basically framework of what the design will look like. And this green arrow shows us basically where we are in that process. This project has a history. I talked to several. It's been an ongoing study. I believe it was 4 years or so in duration. So this area has been studied. There's been some long-term alternatives that's been discussed and developed. There was a public informational meeting that was held in November, or rather May of this year, where the results were made public. One of the reactions to that public outreach was the fact that there wasn't a lot of short-term improvements included. So we were basically looked at geez, that was good. An effort to look at this again, to identify any short-term improvements that were potentially there. And we were successful in doing it. And again, we're trying to ease traffic congestion. We know the need for longer-term, more meaningful projects is warranted here. There are safety concerns that the department's very concerned about. There is congestion concerns from a larger perspective that we're looking at, and there's other initiatives in the area. There's also a study of Heroes Tunnel that's going on that I'm sure you've been made aware of. That was covered in the May meeting. So just to, in going over some of these major convergence of roadways, the Merritt-Cross Parkway, very busy roadway. It's a north-south, but it really kind of goes east-west also. But it's a major connection from New York to New Haven and beyond. Route 63 basically connects, although it goes way up in the corner of Connecticut, it really serves the cities that are in the Naugatuck Valley, providing a direct connection into New Haven, and also access to the Parkway. And Route 69, again, it really terminates in Burlington, but it really serves that Waterbury to New Haven corridor, and also access to the Parkway. So very busy roadways. Between Route 63 and 69, there's actually more volume on Route 63 because it does connect those cities, those nearby cities of the Naugatuck Valley to New Haven, where 69 you're going through Bethany and you're going through Prospect into Waterbury. It's just a little different corridor. But some other roadways in the area, you have Lucy Street, which is a state roadway connecting Route 63 and Route 69. Very busy roadway, partly because of the access points to the Merritt-Cross Parkway. Basically, are using that as a connection to get over to those access points. Pont de Lee Avenue is a municipally owned roadway, but it serves as part of the entrance ramp for northbound Route 15. We have some speed data here. Basically, both corridors have a speed limit of 35, and the average speed isn't much higher than that. This is information that we tend to need as engineers, so a lot of times we plug them in. Not so much that the public's interested, though it could be. As I mentioned, the connections to the Merritt-Cross Parkway, because 3 of the 4 movements are accessed exclusively off Route 69. There's a lot of traffic that's being transferred from Route 63 onto 69 to access those ramps. The only shared access point is the southbound entrance ramp, which is also access to Route 63. Congestion. When we looked at this area a second time, the area that jumped out at us was the entrance ramp and access point from Pond Lily Avenue. The issue with Pond Lily Avenue is, and of course, this is Pond Lily Avenue, and this section really serves as part of that entrance ramp. Well, exiting vehicles from Pond Lily Avenue is taking a significant portion of the cycle length for that signal. It's taken approximately 25% of that signal time. It equates to just about 30 seconds. And it's overall, it's 25%. The cycle length is 115 seconds. Now, I know that could be mumbo jumbo for some people who, aren't into that, but bottom line is that phase is causing some additional delays. It's actually, we have such heavy demand for southbound left turns and for northbound right turns, that excess time is very significant. So because of that compressed time period, right, you have 115 seconds, it leaves about 75 seconds for the other movements. And because the demand is so great, that's not sufficient. And you start getting congestion and backups because of that. In the southbound directions, as those who drive it will test, it will back up to Lucy Street. Many people think there's a problem with Lucy Street. Although it could be made better if it was wider, the key or the underlying problem is here at Pond Lily Avenue. Along with queues, we also have some things that aren't necessarily related to this, the parkway, the exit ramps to the parkway. The northbound is not signalized. They have to vie for gaps in existing traffic. So that's a congestion point. And also southbound exiting vehicles, there's a heavy demand for left turns exiting the ramp. There's a one lane that accommodates it, and that's really not sufficient. So we have congestion in this area, and that's why we're here tonight, to try to address that. So, the other thing, just to kind of complete an existing condition overview, if you will, is the pedestrian facilities that are out here. At the intersection of Route 63 and 69, there are several crosswalks. They're very, very long. And it's missing one of the major connections because of the openness of actually Swaley Avenue going north, where it's wide open, where the split for 63 and 69 occur. There's no pedestrian crossing there. As you continue north on Route 69, the next crosswalk's at Lucy Street. There are no crosswalks on Route 69. The sidewalks on the east side of the road extend for maybe a third of the way and then disappears. You have basically a worn path. You have some short sections as you approach Pond Lily Avenue, and in front of some of the businesses on the east side of Route 69. The city has some of the motels there. And this shows, this is just a depiction of this worn path, as I was mentioning. It's very difficult for pedestrians to cross the street. Once you're on one side, you're basically locked in because there are no crosswalks. It's a very busy road. So we want to acknowledge the fact that pedestrian facilities out here are really insufficient. So what we're going to do at this point is just go forward with and describe some of the improvements that we're looking at. And starting from the most southerly point, the intersection of Route 63 and 69, we did some modest improvements. It's a very busy intersection, as everyone is aware. It's a major diverge of northbound traffic, either going onto Route 63 and Route 69. Now, this image basically has a darkened area here, kind of showing. I wanted to kind of have the proposed improvements be a little more visible. But underneath that darkened section, you can see this is the existing crosswalk. It's in a location where it's extremely long. By moving the stop bars back, it allows us to actually shorten those crossing distances significantly. We also added at this split a raised island splitting Route 63 and Route 69, and added a crosswalk at this area for safe harbor for pedestrians. The other modification that we're proposing here is a bump out at this side street. Of course, I didn't name it, but it is that side street. But we are going to make, this is a one-way away roadway, and there's parking on the right. So by allowing that bump out on the right side, it kind of protects that parking that's there. The next location we're going to discuss, and just what I've done is kind of blown up particular areas so we can discuss them. We also, after we complete the PowerPoint, we're going to put up the image on a PDF. It's going to show the whole project plan. And if anyone has any questions about any area on that plan, we can zoom right in, we can talk about it. So, but just for the presentation, I just identified certain key spots that we're making some modifications to. And at this location, this is the northbound exit ramp onto Route 69. Now today, this is unsignalized, and there is a one-lane approach. I don't know if you can see, the images didn't come out quite as clear when they're expanded, but this is a one-lane approach. You can see that you have the shoulder stripes in here. What we'd be doing is widening, not a lot, but widening to provide a two-lane approach. This is great. It allows us to manage traffic better. We have the lefts in one lane, the rights in the other. We're going to put, because this is signalized, it gives us an opportunity to provide a crosswalk. This is the section of sidewalk on the east side of Route 69 that's missing. So there'll be new sidewalks from just north of the intersection with Route 63 and 69 up through this area. Just to let you know, it'll be on the east side of the roadway. There is a short section in this area in front of the gas station at that corner that would also be extended. One of the things about crosswalks and sidewalks is it gives us an opportunity to identify where we want people to walk and where we don't want them to walk, where we don't want them to cross. But we have to give them opportunity to make those maneuvers safely. And a signal here provides, it really does provide congestion relief for exiting vehicles, northbound exiting vehicles. Rather than have to find a gap in traffic, they'll have their own signal phase. And the other great thing about that, it also allows for pedestrian crossing there. So this is the next location north from Route 63 and Route 69. Now this is the intersection that had our focus. When we first looked at this a second time, did I say that? First looked at this. This was the area of our focus, and what it was is that this bidirectional roadway, it has some characteristics that causes concerns or congestion. That roadway goes over a brook. It's a two-lane, rather narrow bridge. So it doesn't allow for a two-lane approach, 2 lanes to approach the intersection from the west, nor can we make a double left in, let's say, all right, because there's only 2 lanes on that bridge, 1 in each direction. When we looked at the volumes, and one of the things we do as designers, we'll go out and we'll get turning counts at each location. So we know how many vehicles are making maneuvers at any particular spot in the network. And at this particular location, and I think it has something to do with the fact that there's congestion at the Route 63 and 69 intersections, people who are on Pond Lily Avenue find other ways to go south. But as a consequence, we have very few lefts being made at this location. Exiting Pond Lily Avenue in a peak hour, our counts average about 30 cars during a peak hour. And although 30 cars sounds like a lot, well, when you see them all at once they are, but over an hour, it's very seldom. So, as I had mentioned earlier, this particular phase, exiting vehicles from Pond Lily Avenue, was taking 25% of the overall cycle length. All right, so what we looked at was eliminating left turns here. There is a heavy right turn, and that heavy right turn would still be able to be made. It would be an exclusive right. We would put up an island, a raised island, that would be configured in such a way that would prohibit lefts out. Now, what this allows us to do is we're going to change the phasing at this signal. So as these lefts are being made, these right outs are being made. Call it an overlap. So basically, there is no time being attributed for exiting vehicles, which allows us to use that extra time for time on Route 69, both south and northbound. So we're getting a significant congestion relief or improvement in traffic operations by eliminating that phase. The other thing we're doing here is providing crosswalks. Again, this is exclusive on the east side of the roadway, not on the west side. The west side is very tight, and that's the area of the ramps. We really don't want people crossing an expressway ramp if we can avoid that. So we have pedestrians on the east side of the road. In conjunction with that, one of the other things that came to our attention was today, westbound vehicles on Pond Lily Avenue have the right of way over eastbound vehicles heading for the expressway. What we've done is we are proposing a stop sign for those westbound vehicles and also a do not block the box restriction at that location, so that area always stays free. Now, the other thing we're doing here, which isn't really part of this, or you can't see with this image, but you'll be able to see when we put up the large-scale plan, is at the intersection of Valley Street. Today, it's a two-way stop sign. Going up the hill is uncontrolled. We're proposing to make it all-way stop at that location. Okay, and continuing north. All right, this is the southbound exit ramp. And what we're proposing here for changes in the travel lane use, we're starting a two-lane split for that exit ramp just as you come out of the curve, the horizontal curve, for exclusive left and exclusive right operations. As you continue, there would be widened to allow for a double left. All right, so the idea being that if we have two lanes, we get people closer to the signal, it'll take less time to process those left-turning vehicles through the signal, and we're going to have more time for operations on Route 69. The other thing we're doing, again, we're continuing that sidewalk on the easterly side of the road. And this is a little bit different for those that are familiar with the area. Today there is a right turning roadway. It's outside of the signal, and there is a yield at the end of that ramp, that little turning roadway. So you do yield to left turning vehicles entering onto the ramp. Actually, looking at the volumes, they really didn't warrant an exclusive lane. Because access from Route 63 is present, right? That's that one movement that we can access through 63. The right turning volumes really weren't terrible. They're really exclusively from Route 69. So unlike all the other movements where you combined the volumes for both Route 63 and Route 69, this is the one movement that actually is rather light comparatively. So what we're doing, again, pedestrian safety, pedestrian access is, and this was brought to our attention and we incorporated it, was a crosswalk here. There is no crosswalk there today. So we're proposing a crosswalk here and bringing that right turn lane into the signal. Likely, that would be right turn on red, it'd be loud. Seeing that, we're still preliminary, I'm just going to say likely will be done that way. But that kind of encapsulates what's going on at this location. Again, double lefts, and also bringing that right turn lane into the intersection and providing pedestrian access. There would be a new sidewalk that would connect to the existing sidewalk, which is just north of the driveway. So it's okay, and lastly, as far as our improvements, short-term improvements go, is we're extending that sidewalk up to Lucy Street. We're also providing a widening. This darkened area shows a widening, or it's supposed to show a widening. Just looks like a black spot. But anyway, it does allow for an additional through lane up to that point. Now, again, we talked about these improvements being short-term. If we had extended that lane further north, we would have some major property impacts. That's not something that we wanted to avoid that because of the nature of these improvements, trying to get them out as quick as we can. So our widening in this area is limited to just south of Merritt Street. So again, that additional widening will allow for additional storage and will overall help the network. Now, as I'm looking at this, and realized I never did mention what these improvements do to capacity. Now, typically we talk about capacity as level of service. Right? Level of service, it's a measurement of delay. And based on delay, they'll assign a certain value, A through F, basically is what it is. And A being very good, and F means that you're there far too long, roughly. And basically from our, could you go back a couple? Sure. From, yeah, we'll start at the northbound off-ramp. Okay. Basically, this ramp queues up because there's no gaps. Because of the delay on this ramp, the overall intersection capacity is an F. So the delays are that you are waiting at an inordinate amount of time on that ramp waiting to exit. As we go further north and we look at capacity, yes. This is actually a level of service E today. By eliminating that phase out, very few people are stopping. The left turns have to yield to the right to the through movements, but that's a two-phase signal. It's very, very efficient. We're getting an excellent level of service out of here. That's a significant capacity improvement. At the off-ramp, we've gone from It's still a C, which is acceptable. It's like a 40-second delay or something like that is that range. Much improved from what it is today. And as you go, again, further north up at the Merritt and Lucy, Lucy Street is still going to queue up. Lucy Street's still going to queue up. Again, access points, we didn't change any of the access points. Vehicles from Route 63, 3 of those 4 access points are going to be having to travel down Lucy Street to get on Route 69 to access the Parkway. So there'll still be queues there, but the through movement will be much less delay, and it will actually overall, even though it's still considered an F, it's an F today, and it's, well, what did it say, C? Well, the overall intersection improvement may be a C, but I know that people who are sitting in queues on Lucy Street may not be real happy because they're still going to be sitting there on queues, but it won't be for as long. And the overall operations of the intersection will still improve. So again, I think the nature of what we're doing, as you could say, we didn't make a lot of changes here. We haven't added a lot of new pavement, but we are getting some significant capacity improvements. All right. So, of course, there are some widenings going on, and because of that, there will be some partial property acquisitions that will be likely, and there are 2 slight acquisitions at the corner of Lucy Street and Route 69, and also in the plaza, the more northerly plaza, 36 Amity. I guess that plot goes actually all the way out to Route 63, but there would be a slight encumbrance on their property, and that's for that widening, for that additional through lane. But that would be it as far as impacts. Environmental permits, potential floodplain management permit, that's something that we'll be looking at as a possibility. Construction costs just over $4 million. We expect the construction to start at the beginning of the construction season of 2018. We would expect that the construction duration would be 1 season. Now, I had mentioned, we understand that these improvements do not address some of the greater needs that are out here. There are some safety concerns that we want to be addressing, and we want to be able to modify our access to make it more efficient, our access point on and off the Parkway. So we still have long-term improvements that we're looking at here. In addition, we're looking, as I mentioned, at the Heroes Tunnel. There's a study that's being conducted currently. And what we come up with the tunnel will be coordinated and compatible with our long-term improvements for interchange 59. And again, both efforts will have their public outreach comments and outreach efforts that will be going on. Sorry I was so long-winded. I was hoping to do it more shortly, but all right. So, yes, sir.
First question, is there anything to be done about the northbound 69 left turn into where Starbucks is? Because even having 2 left turn lanes is terrific. One of them is going to be coffee drinkers, and you're back down to 1 lane again. Anything to be done about that?
Unfortunately, under the short-term improvements, but we do recognize that location is problematic.
Yeah.
And
we do too.
Yeah, and that's something that we are looking to address in our long-term improvements.
How do you address that in your long-term improvements? I mean, I'm sure you have some ideas.
Yeah, we do. We do. We're looking at perhaps changing its access point. One of the things that did come out of the previous study was talk about a. Could you? Could you put up the big the PDF? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Zoom out if you would. The geometric configurations of the southbound ramps
Yeah.
allows for this. One of the things that was identified in the long-term study that was going on was a new connection to connect this as some, a possible direct connection with access to the ramps for the parkway. There is potentially, and we have to explore, right? One thought would be maybe to have this access be limited to right in, right out, maybe put a median down the middle, all right? And provide access maybe to that connection roadway. That might be something that would work, might not. We have to check that out. Honestly, we have so much volume coming off the expressway or the parkway. We want to make sure that adding an additional phase isn't going to create undue congestion. We're very concerned about, the volume and the safety of those vehicles coming off the parkway. So that's one. We're also looking at, is it possible to put a roundabout up here and have direct access to a roundabout? That's something we're looking at. So we certainly are looking at some various alternatives to try to improve access there.
What's your timeline for having proposals based on the various alternatives and what you're looking at?
Well, that's a good question. Our timeline is that it's actively on my desk. And my boss has asked me the same thing. So it's something that we're actively working on. I cannot give you a definitive time.
A
But,
wishful time, an optimistic but not overly
I
optimistic.
like your thinking.
You
I'm
know,
an optimistic guy.
as Tom said, it's being coordinated with the tunnel study, which isn't completed yet. That's expected to be completed sometime around the middle of next year.
So,
So we don't really have a firm timeline as to finalize concepts. Tom is kind of at the, he's looking at he's got some ideas, and we're going to vet them with others in the department. But it's really tough to give a firm timeline as to when we'll have solutions. Obviously, public involvement is going to be part of that effort
right.
when we do have something to present.
Right.
But we don't yet. We're still in the very early stages.
Right. We have to, get something, one that's workable, right? And then one that we can gain consensus with. So all that's going to take a little time. We're still working on the first part.
So, what we really here tonight is to talk about the interim improvements.
Yeah, but we recognize the importance of doing the long-term improvements, and that's something we want to emphasize, okay?
Just one question on the long term. The presentation that was made in May, it was all, short term, mid-term, long term. That whole, where does that whole thing stand? Was that all out the window now and you starting from scratch, or
No, we're not,
how
certainly,
does this meld into the overall?
well, there was a lot of good information that was garnered from that study. And some of the bones of what was proposed is still being looked at as viable. But the nuance is to make sure that it's comprehensive. As, just for instance, that connecting roadway, there wasn't really a comprehensive plan on how are we dealing with access management there? How are we dealing with some of the accidents there? So when it goes through our shop, it's something that's really basically ready to go to design. Design is going to pick up the pieces at that point and move forward. The short term, we found that some of the short term things that were there just, wasn't sufficient. So we had to look at it again to try to come up with something that's more meaningful. So we did.
Two other questions. One is your estimated start date of 2018. A, how realistic is that? And B, you said it would take one season. What's a season? I have no idea.
Well, the answer to your later question is, I'm sorry, didn't hear? Okay. Yeah. The first question had to do with,
How realistic?
well, did you? Yeah. The schedule. Want to make sure it's a realistic schedule. And the second part, was
What's a construction season?
yeah, and that's a construction season for us is typically beginning of April to the end of December, basically when the snow flies, really. But that's basically a construction season. That's what we anticipate. All right. As far as the schedule goes, we wanted to be as realistic as we could. We really like to be optimistic and give you a more optimistic time frame, but we felt that it's much better to be pleasantly surprised at something coming in a little bit sooner than disappointed and delayed. So we stayed with what we feel is a prudent time frame to make public. So
The schedule we do consider to be very realistic. As Tom said, it's not optimistic, and there's potential to have the schedule accelerated. But one of the things you're up against when it comes to signal jobs also is you like to begin them at the beginning of a construction season. So you don't want to be advertising in July and having construction start in October. So that's another constraint, is that you'd really like to have construction begin at the beginning of April and have it finished before the winter shutdown at the end of November.
Yeah, because there'll be new signals at all these locations. The contractor, once he's awarded that, one of the first things he'll do is to order that signal equipment. That for him will be his longest timeline. The last thing that'll get done here, trust me, will be those signals being operating. So that'll be it. Yes.
Okay, currently you have a signal on Merritt at 69, which is really not doing anything right now because there's construction on what used to be the Merritt Avenue, so there's a bridge over the water. So I noticed there's a lot of backup there. I don't even know why it's still on, because it's not really accessing traffic from Merritt Avenue. So I don't know why we just don't turn that off for the interim. Is the plan to keep it operational after you start introducing 4 lanes from Lucy down to the access points onto the highway?
Yes. Yes, that road will still be signalized.
The other question is, I mean, currently residents in that area can now access onto Bradley Road because they've opened that cut through. Is there any discussion about closing that again?
That's a town project. I'm really not sure what the plans are there. Those are municipally owned roadways.
Okay, so that should be addressed to Woodbridge?
Yeah, we're really not sure. We don't have the information on that. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, when you finish fixing the bridge on Merritt Avenue, it started exactly December 30th, it's supposed to be finished at fall. Now it's almost a year, it's still not finished. So when it's supposed to be done?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I live there, so I have trouble every day, going up and back.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I believe it's a locally owned bridge,
Nope.
right? And
Local government said it's DOT responsible.
I see. We could certainly look into that. I don't have that
please.
information.
It's almost a year,
Really?
yes.
Okay.
It started exactly December 30th last year. It's almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
Last term it was said it's supposed to be finished at fall. Then it was said it's supposed to be finished November 24th.
Yeah.
Still not done.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's got the contract,
I
whether
don't
it's
know.
a state contract or a local contract.
No idea.
It could be under a local bridge program. I really have no idea, but we'll find out.
Okay, please.
Okay. Yes.
Currently, we have a don't block the box at Lucy and 69, and you said that the lights are similar on 69, at Lucy and Merritt. Is there a way of expanding like the don't block the box in order to stagger traffic more?
Potentially, yeah, I guess we could look into that. There's a don't block the
there.
box on,
At the end of Lucy Street onto the 69, we had gotten that passed
Okay.
like last year, the year before.
okay, yeah, see, that's more recent than,
Yeah, it's
okay.
been pretty recent, but
Okay.
also if that's the expanse, if it goes that little bit further, that should bring traffic, a little bit easier through the congested area.
But I know there's not a lot of queue distance between those two intersections. They're very, very close. I don't know if we could, so a lot of times through phasing, we can make sure no one's sitting there. I'm not sure what the phasing is. We could look at something like that, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
A couple things. Is the timeline related to funding or priority? And is there anything in terms of the studies, I know you've done them for many years, in terms of the studies as to the impact that the existing growth will have waiting 2.5 years before it gets done?
First of all, your first question was neither. It's more of a function of the design process. All right, this is federal money. We have to go through certain milestones. And it's just, unfortunately, takes that long period of time to get something out. It has nothing to do with priority, it has nothing to do with funding. We have funding for this project, and it is a priority. So it's just more or less the design time.
And lastly, as far as Pond Lily, is there any potential for eliminating the traffic coming out of Pond Lily entirely for the right-hand turn and just making it one-way going up and onto it?
We looked at that. It's quite a neighborhood, though, that you're kind of inconveniencing. And that was actually, we looked at that first. And once we looked at it and saw that we could actually accomplish the same thing by still allowing rights out, that was the preferred choice. Yes, sir.
So I've been involved in this for the last 4 years, as a member of the stakeholder task force representing the business community in Woodbridge. So I really do applaud the efforts of DOT at this time, and the city of New Haven, and the first selectman's office from Woodbridge pushing this, because this is the best plan that I've seen to accomplish some major short-term actions, which I think is great. But I'm concerned that, we have been studying this for 4 years. We're still 3 years out. I know it's already been asked, but, really, again, is this realistic that we'll see this done in 4 years? And what, if any, could be a potential holdup that if you're projecting that, is there something that can happen that could hold this up that, maybe an issue that if we know about now, we could help address? You mentioned funding, for example. Has that been secured so we don't have to really worry about that?
No, there's nothing like that on the horizon.
So this is really pretty darn realistic.
This is pretty darn realistic.
It's great to hear.
This is pretty darn realistic.
Okay.
And yes, and it's really 3.5 years, right? We'll get there. We're going to try to compress it as if we can, but it certainly looks like a spring start in 2018.
Right, and that is our most realistic estimate.
That's a realistic
And it's
estimate.
not a matter of funding at all. The two pitfalls that are probably driving, the main issue that's probably driving the schedule is the minor slivers of right-of-way that have to be acquired. And if there are any permits, but I think the permits in this particular case are going to be very minor. I'm sorry, rights-of-way. The tiny slivers of rights-of-way acquisition were probably driving the schedule at this point.
So you're talking about the negotiation with private entities?
The whole process
Right.
of appraising,
Right.
making the offers, title searches, it's a lengthy process.
And the wetland issues.
Wetlands?
Possible.
Isn't it wetland?
Well,
I don't think
we're
so.
basically trying to stay out of any wetlands issues. So.
Staying on that side of the road.
Right. Sir.
So, I was late, so I haven't seen the whole presentation.
No problem.
But the only thing I don't see outlined there is that entrance to Route 15, which, to me, I don't go there that often, but 50% of the time is always somebody there with a crash.
Okay.
So what is that going to be? I mean, I understand everybody who's going to work have to go into Route 15 instead of back up. But yeah, right there, that little white line that crossed there,
in this
is always
area, or
something happens in there.
All right, I'm sorry. Are you talking about this area?
Yeah, right there.
Oh.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
The entrance to 15, which is kind of
I'm
a
getting
stop.
on, yeah.
Yes.
This whole area here is
Mhm.
of concern. One of the things I prefaced,
For accidents, I am pretty sure that is probably 80% of the accidents in the whole area happens on that intersection.
Yeah, we're very concerned about safety. Start there. Okay. Very concerned about safety. We're working on some long-term improvements that will geometrically change that configuration on both locations, the merge of those ramps, and also that non-existent acceleration lane onto the parkway.
It was
okay?
built for 30 miles an hour cars.
Yeah, but what we're doing with this project is we're doing some short-term interim improvements to address capacity on the ramps and on Route 69. So we acknowledge that that's an area of concern and of a priority for us to look at. But under this project, where we're trying to achieve significant or some meaningful capacity improvements on Route 69, we are trying to expedite those so that they lessen the inconvenience for those traveling the roadway. So, but those improvements are coming. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that there's going to be a new traffic light at the northbound exit?
Yes,
And that's the only new traffic light?
that's the only new traffic signal, yes.
So do you still have a 30-year timeline for the completion of the entire reconfiguration of the entrance and exits?
There's no 30-year timeline. There's no 30-year timeline.
So what's the timeline for the rest of the improvements to upgrade the whole area?
I can, like, rest assured, it's not going to be 30 years. Because really what we have to do is you know, again, we're conducting a study of Heroes Tunnel, okay? We should, upon completion of that, we will have some direction as to what that will look like. We're currently looking at the long-term improvements for access to the Merritt-Cross Parkway. And we'll be out at some point before too long. I don't want to say exactly when, because I'll be held to it, and if I don't meet that deadline, I'll be in hot water again. But we will be back out. We will be talking about alternatives, right? Because again, part of what we're doing is gaining consensus, not only finding something that works, but also that we have buy-in. So we'll be out again, and we're going to be discussing them. And I would say that, you know, those improvements will get off the ground within a year, two, maybe max. That we starting some initiative there. But I don't know. We have to, first of all, ID what we're doing. What's the scope of those? What are the impacts of that? Is it going to be supported? So we got a lot of steps to go through that. As we go down that road, we're going to, you know, kind of, that timeline will come more in focus. But it won't be 20 years. It certainly won't be 30 years. It won't be 20 years either. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to note that it was rather disappointing to watch the Whaley Avenue 69-63 intersection get repaved this past summer, where you could have implemented that first phase that you showed. It was very simple, could have been done, everything was dug up, and apparently nobody was thinking, and now we have to spend money yet again to redo something that could have been corrected this past summer. And those plans that you had that you showed us back in May and came out in, you know, in a final form in June were something that apparently never got through to the people that were paving that intersection. So I'm just mentioning, it'd be nice if there was a little bit more communication with you guys, and I hope we're not going to see repaving of Amity and 69 down there and then have it all get torn up again.
We actually were in coordination with maintenance that did the repaving this summer. We were in coordination with them, and they were willing to put in a raised island, but the improvements are deceptively simple because there's additional work besides just putting in an island and marking crosswalks. There are sidewalk ramps, there's signal modifications to put in new ped buttons. These are the types of things that maintenance has a much more difficult time doing. They have limited staff, they have limited equipment. So with the other appurtenances that go along with those relatively simple improvements, maintenance felt they just couldn't handle it in that time frame. Their contract was ready to go by the time we started talking about this. So it was felt it was better left when we had a dedicated project with a separate contractor who's putting in, you know, thousands of feet of sidewalk or hundreds of feet. So it's better left for the larger contract with a you know, commercial contractor. It wasn't a matter of poor communication. That's all I wanted.
The perception was.
I'd like to just kindly suggest that your timeline maybe is missing a key element, and that is after construction in terms of assessment of whether what you've done works or not. Can you tell us a little bit about what DOT does after they've finished a construction project?
Well, you know, we have, first of all, we have a limited staff. But we have started doing conducting safety studies after we do safety improvements. So we are doing that. One that was just recently done was a section of Route 44 over Avon Mountain, right, and showed a significant reduction in crash frequency. As far as capacity improvements, you know, quite honestly, they are typically unsung, and I'll put it that way, in that if there's a problem, we'll hear about it. But when there's improvements, everybody's just, you know, quiet, but everybody's happy. We just did some improvements on Broad Street in Hartford, and we haven't heard anything. I've gone out there several times. There's no traffic queues or very limited traffic queues, and you know, again, no complaints. It's kind of like a quiet improvement. Everybody kind of like takes it for granted. Okay, we're good, you know, and you're going. So, will we look at this? I will say that we have long-term improvements on the heels of this project coming. So there will be an assessment done of this particular improvement, because we have to kind of gauge, well, where are we? All right, so yeah, that will be done.
Thanks.
And on a routine basis, you know, our traffic engineers, once the you know, new equipment is up, the new signals are up, the widening has happened, our traffic engineers will go out and make sure that the signal timing is optimized. But that's kind of an ongoing, you know, effort. What you've got right now is optimized. It's just that you've got way too much traffic for the phasing that has to exist out there.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you looked at the signalization along Whaley Avenue where Route 67, 63 and 69 break off, and then into Amity Road? Because there's always a big, huge backup there, and it seems like it's the signals that's causing the problem. And I'm not sure because I'm not an expert, but I've been in traffic enough there. So I was wondering if you look at that at all?
You know, we know that that is a significant congestion area also. That's not part of this project. It is part of the longer-term project that we've got going. That section of Amity Road, I think widening is probably something that might be in the offing there. And we looked at widening, and we saw the impacts were, I don't want to say severe, but they were significant. There were some significant impacts. That's why that's why it was not included in this project, because of property impacts. But we certainly will be looking at that area. It is a congestion point, and that is something that we try to take a look at the whole area. What we can do under this long-term project, we're going to try to include. So.
It seems to be that light at Whaley, you know, Whaley 63 and 69. When it turns green, then the light on Amity Road turns red and backs up the traffic onto Whaley Avenue. And I thought maybe they could do something.
Well, we could certainly look at that. Honestly, we could look at that again. I think we just looked at that particular intersection as, you know, very, very busy, and again, we were trying to just look for something without a lot of impacts. But we'll certainly look at the phasing of that signal and see whether or not there's something that can be done without a lot of time and effort. So certainly look at that.
At exit 59 southbound, when you're waiting to turn to go north onto Route 69, the light turns red for the southbound traffic on 69, and then there's like a two almost 3 minute delay before the light turns red for the northbound 69 traffic, and there are like no cars that are going northbound at that point.
There's, you know, a lot of times a project. The signal is phased a certain way to make sure that we've cleared out certain areas. So that particular section between the two intersections, we want to have free. Now, you know, with this project, we're going to be using updated signal equipment. The phasing will be modified. So, you know, I can't speak to the particular nuance of that because each time of day is a little different, the timing. So I'm sure that we'll have more effective use of time once we get this new project on the ground. So.
Are the long-term alternatives from the last meeting still on the table? What I'm referring to is coming out of Lucy Street, another lane to access southbound to the Merritt Parkway. Are those alternatives still? And also a loop going north from headed south, and a loop going north rather than crossing over onto Pond Lily Avenue. Are those alternatives still on the table for a long term or
I
not?
would say that aspects of all those alternatives are still on the table.
Because it seems like that would make a lot more sense to get some traffic off of the, completely, and have a flow-through lane going by Starbucks rather than having, having the sidewalk there now.
Right. I think, as we look at an area like this, you have a series of intersections, a network, a roadway network, right? And we see intersections failing on that network. And what we try to do is say, well, at this intersection we'll do one thing, at another intersection we'll do something else. What we identified here, basically, was intersection at one key intersection that's affecting other intersections. All right, so the intersections that we're proposing at Pond Lily Avenue will affect all the other intersections positively. The approach on Lucy Street to Route 69, it's a one-lane approach. There is businesses on both sides of the street there, that's very close. Under our long-term improvements, we're not really sure, although the original alternatives are still on the table, we're also looking at, well, what other alternatives are there? There may not be the demand, depending on the alternatives that we come up with, where traffic that currently is coming down Route 63, taking Lucy Street to Route 69 to access the Parkway, that demand might not be there because that access might be somewhere else. If this connecting roadway, right, between here and here, the demand for traffic coming down Route 63 and trying to access this section of Route 69 is going to be greatly diminished because they have access off of Route 63. Why would you want to go take Lucy Street to access something down here if you have access here? So we're going to look at it in a large, big overview. We're going to take into all considerations, but ultimately when we refine an alternative, we will have to make do or do whatever we have to do to make the network work. All right. So, but at this point, I can't look at that particular approach to that intersection and say, well, it needs X, Y, and Z. Right?
Okay, I was just wondering what happened back.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea.
Yeah. No, it is if you're just looking at that location. Right? Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. And I should say, after there is a 10-day comment period, if anyone has any comments, please send those comments to your locale, your municipal officials, and let them know how you feel about it, or if you have some additional concerns or questions, we will get them from the municipality. Okay?
We'll be getting a PDF.
Yes.
We'll get a PDF that we'll have on our website. We also have Public Access TV taping this. We'll get it to New Haven also. I'm sure it will be on the New Haven website too. And information about, well, in Woodbridge, certainly you know how to reach us. If you have any comments, we'll be sure they get promptly to DOT. Did you want to say something?
This presentation up on exit59study.com?
Not this, no. No, this wasn't really part of that study. This was internal. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. And,